In this video, I'm gonna talk about the biggest mistakes that a beginner chess player can make, and of course how to handle it, how to do it the right way. And please don't be afraid of the length of this video, because I promise it's gonna be incredibly beneficial for you, incredibly useful, so make sure to watch it till the end. Hi guys, it's International Master Evgeny Liseyev, and I consider the biggest mistakes that a beginner chess player can make not analyzing your own games. You see, you play your game, you win or lose, and you just go on with your chess life, but it's the main source of your development, analyzing your own games, because, well, no matter how you played, chances are you have made tons of mistakes, and if you really try to understand why that or it happened and why you took those decisions, what went well, what went wrong, you really grow exponentially in terms of your chess level. And it's very important also to analyze in the right way, and that is what I want to show you in this video. I'm gonna take one of the games that I have played. Actually, it was a tournament game that I played yesterday, and so I have all of my fresh thoughts, and I could guide you through all of my decision-making process throughout a full tournament game. And I'm gonna analyze it first without the engine, because, well, yeah, just manually trying to calculate some variations, trying to show you what I was calculating during the game and maybe my fresh thoughts during the process. And afterwards, I'm gonna switch on the engine and check, well, how stupid I was. Definitely, it's gonna say that I have made like 20 mistakes every few moves. So yeah, I'm very curious to see it. I'm actually pretty satisfied with my game. I was really happy yesterday after I played it in terms of my level. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that computer will say that that's the dumbest game that he ever saw. So yeah, let's take a look. I played this game as black, and I really recommend you to analyze your games without the engine first, because, well, you can once again double check your ideas, what worked, what not, and then you can check it out with the engine and then compare your results, the results of your analysis, with the engine's results. Because if you just watch with the engine, it's not that useful, because it's like you're not trying to solve this task on your own, you're just checking the answers, which is not that efficient as trying to really focus deeply into the process and only then take a look at the answers. So I played this game against a pretty strong international master, Alejandro Franco Alonso, which is slightly higher rated than myself, and I played as black. The game started with d4, d6, and he played knight f3, knight f6, c4, knight bd7, knight c3, and e5. I really like playing this opening for black. It's incredibly solid, it's very flexible. Yes, it's slightly passive, that is why many players don't like it, but for me it just works incredibly well. I also have prepared for this game very good, which is a #1 tip if you want to beat a very strong opponent as black. Have a very good opponent preparation and, well, be lucky to get this exact position which you have prepared, because of course it happens not every day. But let's see how I managed to do it. So he played e4 here, bishop goes to e7, a pretty normal development, nothing special. Here I played the move c6, very important move, because this pawn covers all of the important squares here, especially d5. And if white plays d5, it's never a problem, because it gives us some squares to go, some targets to attack. So normally white doesn't do it without any significant reason to do so. He played queen c2, and that is slightly not the main move that I have prepared. The main move here is rook to e1, but the position could still transpose to what I have prepared, so I decided to go with the same plan and, well, just checked the variations. It took me some minutes to check whether this transposition potential change in the move order might change anything in my plans or not. Turned out that it's still completely normal that what I played. So I played here queen e8, very interesting idea. and it's very rare. That is why my opponent wasn't prepared for it. And the point is, well, if you look at it, it seems like an ugly move you would never play, and you might be asking yourself, why on earth would you do that? And the point is, this bishop on e7 is a pretty passive one. It's actually the main problem in this whole black's setup. So this queen e8 starts the possibility for this bishop to be remaneuvered and have some good squares, which is what happened in the game. He played rook e1, and so now the position transposed to exactly what I have prepared. So I was once again pretty sure in my preparation and my position. He played here h3 because he wants to develop his bishop to e3, but if you do it immediately, the knight jumps to g4 potentially and creates some difficulties. That is why, yeah, it's pretty often that people are playing h3 in such a position. Also, of course, it creates some space for the king to be safe. And queen e7. So now you could see that in these three moves that I have spent, I have switched the queen and the bishop. But it's very important because the bishop is now free to go and the queen is pretty good here, cementing everything. And also the rook is once again free to go. It's still my preparation, nothing special. This h3 bishop e3 has been played before. I actually prepared using the game of Bahadur Jabava, a Georgian grandmaster who played exactly this variation as black, and he had exactly this position. Here bishop goes to a5, pinning this knight and putting some pressure on this e4 pawn, because now I have one attacker and I potentially might exchange this pawn on d4, and then I have two attackers, and if I exchange this knight he only has one defender. So you could say that this pawn is somehow under attack and you need to do something about it. You can either play d5, but like I said, it's never really a problem, or you could do what he played, the move knight to d2. And yeah, here the knight is protecting the pawn. It's actually still what happened in the Jabava's position in his game. His opponent, a very strong 2700s player, also played knight d2. So far we are following this game. And rook d8. Well, the rook is very good placed here. No real difficulties for me. I protect everything, and of course, in case he takes, I'm perfectly prepared. If he goes d5, once again, I can deal with it. Bishop f1, opening the rook here, a pretty normal, pretty useful move. Knight f8. So now I kind of create a positional threat. I want to go knight to e6 and knight to d4. After d5, for example, if he takes, it's even better because my rook would be opened. But even if he plays d5, with my knight being on e6, I can jump to d4 with the tempo. And if he takes, yes, this pawn might be weak, but first of all, I will have a possibility to defend it. And secondly, well, I have managed to exchange my knight for a bishop, and his dark squares bishop is a very important piece in this position. This light squares bishop is completely dumb, it's useless because he has a lot of light squares, especially if another pawn will go to d5, which happened later on in the game. This bishop becomes completely useless, and I would not want to exchange it. But this bishop is very important for him. So this idea, knight d6 and knight d4, is pretty unpleasant for white. That is why at this point he played d5, and that's still the position from the game of Bahadur Jabava, but I didn't really remember what he played in this position. In the fact, in reality, he played here h6, but I didn't remember it, and I really didn't think of it during the game, so I played what seemed to be a reasonable move, bishop to d7. I kind of protect here one more time, maybe prepare some potential b5 ideas, and generally just continue my development, connect the rooks. The drawback is, of course, that I don't have this d7 square for my knights available, and I kind of close my own queen. He played rook b1, which is pretty good move, preparing the move b4 with the tempo. And now rook went to c8. Well, seems like a good way to go to put your rook in front of your opponent's queen just to create some pressure in some variations. It can be important, especially if he tries to go on with c5 after b4. But of course, before making this move, I really had to calculate the variations in terms of b4, c5, and white just goes all the way through and trying to punish me for being so passive. And now I just played rook c8 and hope that after b4 I don't collapse. I played the move bishop to b6, and it seems for me that c5 doesn't work. I was checking these variations all the time, like with this knight c4 jumps, with d6 moves, but yeah, seems like I could handle it. And then he played queen to d3, just stepping away from this c-file, making sure that queen is here to help the attack. And now c5 is becoming to be really dangerous for me, so I tried to stop it. I played c5 myself, and the drawback, of course, is that it opens the b file, and I can't recapture. He took on c5. I can't recapture it with a bishop because I basically just lose a pawn. So I took with a pawn, but actually it was my idea to take with a pawn because this d6 square is just a perfect place for a knight. So all I needed to do is to place my knight here, and it controls everything. It blocks this pawn. It's just a dream. But what I was a little bit worried about is his move d6. He didn't play it, but of course I needed to calculate the variations because afterwards queen e6 seems to be the most active move. This knight comes to d5, and I don't really want to take it because he takes back with the c pawn, and then c4 is a beautiful place for his knight to go, even though he loses a pawn. But yeah, his initiative is tremendous. So I guess I was planning on just taking on d6 with my queen, because now I'm not allowing this knight and then this bishop to go on in the game. Of course, he can win the pawn back. He can take on b6. If he takes on f6, I can just take it back because my bishop is covered with the knight. And if knight takes b6, I can exchange the queens, take back the knight, defend the pawn. At least that is what I calculated during the game. And now everything is protected. I thought that bishop c5 is not possible because I have knight d7 with the fork. So that's great. And I also have my rook, which is very active along the a file, and this very weak a2 pawn. So I was pretty satisfied with my position. Maybe even this knight goes to d7 to protect, and this knight if needed, and this knight goes all the way to d4, where of course it's just a dream piece. So that was my plan, but he didn't play the move d6. What I mean is you absolutely must calculate those variations before you make such an important decision as c5, especially during a tournament game. Of course, in a blitz game you might not always have the time to do it, but at least briefly such things are very important because it could easily just cost you a game. So he played here bishop e2. His idea is actually pretty clever. Remember, I was talking that this bishop is incredibly stupid here because all of those pawns are on the light squares, so the bishop has nothing to do. So he thought, well, my plan is to go here with my knight, so the knight won't be controlling the g4 square anymore, and that is why he can use this chance and exchange my bishop. For me, of course, it would be great to, for example, exchange the bishop for a knight, for example, and have just a dream knight against the bishop, the stupid bishop on the light squares. But, well, you can't always get what you want. So I have achieved my goal of putting the knight on d6, but I have to live with this bishop's exchange because I don't really have a way to escape it. If I don't move my knight to e8, well, the knight can't put it on d6, and this d6 threat is always a problem for me. And, well, what am I supposed to do here otherwise? So I played knight a8, bishop to g4, I exchanged it, and actually I had a pretty cute idea in mind. I'm not sure if the engine says it's a good one, but I thought I'm winning a tempo here because I play queen d7 and I attack the g4 pawn, but not only that, also I pin this pawn on d5. If you look at the queen, it's not really protected. So what I want here is to play knight e6. And then the knight will finally achieve its main destination, the d4. I mean, imagine this knight landing on d4. It would be just a beautiful piece, the best piece you can imagine. Comparing, for example, to this f8 square where the knight is pretty sad, standing there doing nothing. So of course he didn't want to do that, to allow me to land my knight on d4. So f3, for example, wouldn't be a good choice. He played queen a2, removing the queen and at the same time defending the pawn. So now my bishop is free to go because the pawn on b7 is protected, the pawn on c5 is protected, the bishop is doing nothing on b6, so I thought I can activate it with a tempo because this knight on c3 is not protected anymore as the queen is gone. My problem was that if I play knight d6 immediately, which of course is on my agenda, then he could play knight b5 and just exchange this beautiful knight. And I have to spend like 1,000 years till I somehow transfer this knight from f8 to d6. I don't even see the way, like knight g6, knight e7, knight c8, I need to remove my rook, and then knight d6, because I absolutely must have a knight there. So I didn't want to allow him to exchange this knight on d6. It's like my best hope, my main hope for this position, to have such a knight. So that is why I played bishop a5, because I can't play a6 immediately, the bishop would be hanging. I played that first, and rook to c1, now I played a6, covering the square, and now I'm perfectly ready for the move knight to d6. But of course, the worry I had is about the c5 pawn, because now he can attack it with basically every piece that he has, and that's what he tried to do. Let's see. He played knight d1 first. I was rather expecting knight b3 immediately, trying to attack, and then I wanted to go to b4, and I hope that it's gonna really work, that he doesn't have any plans like rook a1, a3 or something like that, and I have time for knight d6, and once I have my knight on d6 I can always potentially hope for this b5 breakthrough, because then I really get into active stuff. But instead he played knight d1. I suppose his idea was not to allow me to exchange this bishop for a knight, because in this position, when I have my pawns on the dark squares, remember what I told you about this light squares bishop, but I also have the same problem. Those pawns are on the dark squares, so this bishop is pretty useless, and in such a close position it might not be a bad idea to exchange it for the knight. And here he plays knight d1 and basically says, okay, one of my knights is removed, I just need to remove the second one, and then you will never be able to exchange your bishop. So I was facing a choice here whether I want to exchange it or not. I decided that I don't want, that I'm gonna just continue playing with my plan. I played knight d6, and of course another idea of this move knight d1 is to relocate it all the way to d3, where the knight would be great, just attacking everything that could be attacked, those two main pawns that actually hold the whole position for me. If those pawns are gone, he will just rush into my position with his pawns and just destroy me. So I absolutely need to make sure that those pawns are protected, and the problem is that ideally this knight should be placed on d7, where it nicely protects both of the pawns, but my queen is standing there, so I can't really do that. He played knight b2, continuing his maneuver, and basically he wants to place his knight on d3, his knight on b3, this bishop is already attacking this pawn, and then maybe potentially also f3 and queen f2, the idea I haven't seen until he played it on the board. And then he would be attacking like 4 times, and for me it would be very difficult to defend it. Well, I can go passively like bishop d8 and b6, but then I don't really have any active opportunities whatsoever, and that's not what I wanted to do. So I played b5 immediately. I thought, if not now, then I'm not gonna be able to play it anymore. Of course, once again, I needed to calculate an incredible amount of variations. This whole knight jumps, and potentially he could also take, and then the c file is opened, and this c5 pawn is attacked once again. So there are like, I don't know, 5 different variations here. But yeah, once again, I hope that it's gonna work. I calculated as good as I could, because I also didn't have such a lot of time at this point of the game. And so he played f3, which seems to be a slightly passive move in such a position. Afterwards, I realized that his idea was to play queen f2, and this pawn, of course, on g4 is already protected. But I was expecting something much more active, like knight to b3, knight to d3, taking the pawn. So for example, takes. I thought that, well, if I take back, he can just take on c4, and that doesn't seem to be that great. But at this point, I can take on d2, and he can't really take back with the queen because I win some pawns over here, and that shouldn't be that great for him. And if he takes with the bishop, then the bishop is no longer attacking the pawn on c5, so I'm taking it back. Now I have achieved my goal in terms of exchanging the bishop for a knight, a bad bishop, and I also have those two pawns which are protected. If he goes back, I always can play c4, and I also have this beautiful rook once again, which is attacking this weak pawn on a2. So I liked this variation. If he goes knight b3, I guess I just wanted to go to b6 back, defending this pawn, and yeah, and then just hoping that it's gonna work. The e4 pawn is hanging. So yeah, I guess that was my idea. And if he goes knight d3, then yeah, I also have some ways to continue. Maybe also bishop takes, yeah, knight d3 doesn't work because I'm actually threatening bishop takes d2 and knight takes c4 with some tempo. Or maybe knight takes e4, either way, yeah, knight d3 seems like a bad move. And so he played f3 to like cementing everything here, not to worry about any problems, and he thought, well, he still have time to do whatever he wants, to put all of his pieces into the attack, and then eventually my position should collapse because, well, I'm more passive. I played queen a7. I decided, okay, he gave me one tempo, I have to use it, and so I need to bring my knight. Remember, I said that it's gonna be beautifully placed on d7, defending all of the pawns, but I couldn't really go anywhere I wanted with the queen, like, I don't know, to e7, for example, because then he's gonna take on b5, and after bishop takes d2, he can just recapture with the queen, and this pawn would be protected thanks to the move f3. So the pawn on c5 is going to be lost in that variation eventually, because he has his bishop and his rook attacking, and I don't have enough defenders. So that is why I played queen a7, to have one additional defender here and making sure that this pawn on c5 is secure, because once again, that's a key one. If I lose it, I basically lose the game kind of immediately. Of course, it's a little bit dangerous placing your queen like that against the bishop, but I thought, worst case scenario, I have my bishop here to support, so it should never be a problem. He played a3. This move is actually a big surprise for me. I didn't understand what's the point of it. Maybe he was stopping b4 or bishop b4. I don't know. I wasn't going to go on b4 in any of the variations, so for me it seemed like he just wasted the tempo instead of somehow creating some threats for me. And I started to think how I might use this chance, this free tempo. I played knight d7, just defending everything, and now, yeah, I wasn't really that worried about the c5 pawn because I already have 1, 2, 3 defenders, and at the moment he only has actually 1 defender, but potentially 2, and then this queen is coming to f2 and he has 3. And then, of course, the knights are coming, so it could be 5 in the end of the day, but, well, it's very difficult for him to make it everything possible. He played knight b3 with a double attack, and I guess here it was a very important moment in the game, because the knight is attacking the bishop and the pawn, so it's so tempting to play bishop b6, but I actually think that's the wrong move, and now white should be better here. I don't know what the engine says, I'm very curious to see, but I didn't really like how it goes after bishop b6. So I guess the problem is that this bishop gets under attack, so something like a4 is possible, kind of threatening, like if I play b4, for example, trying to just close everything. If I get to play a5, then it should be relatively fine, probably a draw, but at least I'm kind of out of danger. But the problem is he plays a5 himself with a tempo, and then once I go back, he puts his knight on a4, actually a beautiful position with the knight, and then he's ready to attack it one more time. And yeah, seems like white is incredibly active here. So he has like 1, 2, 3, 4 attacks, and I only have 3 defender at the moment, but maybe I can still survive. I can play knight b7, defend it, and maybe even attack the a5 pawn. Yeah, also maybe some other opportunities taking it, and then maybe the knight will come with a tempo. Anyways, I didn't really want my bishop on b6. I played bishop d8, and it feels, at least as the game continued, it really helped me, because in no variation I had a problem that my bishop is under attack, and I also have this b6 square for the knight, if that might be useful for me. He played queen f2, once again trying to put some additional pressure on the c5 pawn. And here I was really thinking, okay, what could I do? All of my pieces are actually ready, having its best positions. I can't really improve my pieces position, so I have to do something active, because if I do nothing, he's gonna come with a knight, with a pawn, and eventually he'll just capture this pawn on c5. I can't just, you know, stay like knight b7 and hope that nothing happens. It's not the way you play chess. You can't be that passive. And so I thought, okay, right now I have this opportunity to be active, so I have to use it. So maybe you could pause the video for a second and think, what could you do in this position, how you could continue as black not to get into trouble. And actually I even managed to get the initiative after implementing the idea that I have came up with. Okay, so hopefully you have your idea in mind. So I'm gonna follow the decision-making process that I had in mind in this position. I wanted to play a5. And my idea was that if he takes on b5, I can play, I guess I had in mind the move a4. Yeah, and then I'm using the fact that there is a pin actually here. Like, white is pin on black, but black is also pin on white, because I can play bishop b6 and the knight can't go anywhere, as I'm winning the bishop and I'm winning the queen, and the knight is hanging, so he can protect it once, but I also can attack it one more time, and then he doesn't have any other way to protect the knight, and I'm basically winning here if I am not blundering anything, but he has no checks and he can't move the knight, he loses the bishop and the queen. So basically it seems like black is winning here. So that is what I thought about this move a5, but then I thought, well, he can play a4, and what do I do about that? Like, my idea with the move a5 was, of course, to play a4, but he plays a4 himself, blocks my pawn, and I don't really want to take it here, because it just opens now the c file for him, and he would be able to double his queens, to put all of his pieces to attack my c5 pawn, and I would be incredibly passive. And if I play b4, then once again I don't have any active opportunities. He plays knight d3, and well, it's better than nothing, because at least I'm a little bit advanced, and yeah, I might be able to protect everything, but I spotted a much more active opportunity right now, and hopefully you have found it. I don't know, I'm not sure that it's the first computer line, but I hope so, because I was pretty proud of it. So it's b takes c, and at least for me it was very counterintuitive, because I am actually isolating my own pawn. I'm kind of making it a target now, an easy target. I lost my hope to recapture with the a pawn after he takes my pawn, to connect those pawns and to open up the a file, but it's all for just fun idea, but I guess it's so good that it's worth it. Wait a second, he didn't actually take on c4, which was like automatic reaction, I thought, but for some reason he played knight e2. He wanted to be somehow tricky here, and I don't know, maybe take with this knight, or yeah, I don't know what idea he has in mind, but I guess it's a mistake, because I have now a very beautiful opportunity winning some tempos and achieving my goal. So maybe you can find it here, pause the video for a second if you need. The move is c3. The point is, I lose this pawn no matter what. I have no ways. He has 3 attackers, I have 1 defender, I have no ways to save it. And so I give it up, but he can't go, like, he still wants to go to c4 with the pawn or without the pawn. It was his plan. But now I'm kind of winning one tempo here, because instead of going knight takes c4, he goes rook to c3, which actually doesn't help him. But also I go knight b5 with a tempo here. So my idea of the move b takes c was to play knight b5 next move. And now I actually get to do it with a tempo which is even better, and none of his knights is on c4 yet. And I was expecting something like rook b to d3, because he has to defend the pawn on a3. And then I was going to play knight d4 and, well, just enjoy the fact that I have this beautiful knight. Remember, I was telling you about it earlier, that it would have been a dream, and that's what I'm achieving now. But all of a sudden he played rook c1, deciding just to sacrifice this pawn, and I was faced with a choice. What do? Do I go in the center and have my beautiful knight, or do I go to the a file but win a pawn? And I decided, actually, if he went back, he wasted some time and his knight are still not on c4. Why can't I give one tempo up and win this pawn? Because I actually do it with a tempo. I'm attacking the rook, so he has to make a move with the rook. Then I go back and I still want to go to d4. So basically I wasted not two, but just one tempo. Of course, his rook is pretty active here, but I thought I can handle it. And, well, even if I suffer not for free, but for one pawn. He went to c4 with his knight, finally achieving what he wanted to achieve, but I also achieved what I wanted to achieve, knight d4. And I mean, look at this knight, it just shuts the whole diagonal down completely. Now he has no chance of winning the c5 pawn, and otherwise, well, of course, I'm still pretty passive except for this knight, but I have an extra pawn. I have covered all of my weaknesses, so I was incredibly happy that I achieved this position. He played rook a2. I don't know, maybe potentially doubling, keeping in mind the idea of doubling his rooks, maybe covering some important squares here. I played f6, just trying to stabilize the position somehow here. He played knight a5 here, and now I thought, okay, that's my chance to exchange the bishop if I want to do it, because otherwise, well, maybe he can take on d4 and put his knight on c6 and have a beautiful knight, and I have a stupid bishop. Like I said, like, if all of your pawns are on the dark squares, try to get rid of your dark squares bishop, because it has no ways to be developed, no ways to be active. I don't need it, and so I had the chance to exchange it now, and I thought, okay, now is the time, now or never. So he took back, and I went with the queen to c7, attacking this rook, using the opportunity that he doesn't really want to play rook a1, because now I guess this knight c2 is not that pleasant. Yes, I exchanged my beautiful knight, but, well, I'm gonna play c4 afterwards. This knight will be able to go to c5 potentially, and I have a beautiful passer which is moving forward. So yeah, I'm not sure he can play rook a1 here. He played rook a2 back instead, once again covering the c2 square, I guess. So I played a5 because, well, I didn't want to be too passive, and I didn't see any other active moves. He played g5, which is kind of just put some fire on the position. He tried to be active, he tried to use his activity on the king side, because otherwise, well, he does exactly nothing. And so, yeah, I thought about it before making a 5 move. Of course, I had to calculate it, because earlier I had this bishop on d8, which was covering, and I could have just taken on g5. Now I can't. Well, I can, but that would make his pieces more active, that would give more chances to him, and also this e5 pawn wouldn't be protected anymore, and I didn't want just to allow him that. Instead, I went actively. I was preparing this move before, when I played a5, the move f5. And yeah, once again, this pawn might be a little bit more vulnerable, but I'm active here. He still has his pawn on g5, which doesn't really allow his pieces to be as active as he would like to have it. And also, if he takes, I can just take it back, and then I'm attacking this bishop. I can just come back, and I don't see any real troubles here for me. he played instead f4, once again trying to sharp the position, because, well, he is a pawn down. If he doesn't have any counterplay, if he is not trying to be as active as possible, then I'm gonna slightly stabilize my position and just convert the extra pawn. Moreover, it's just a passer. So I took here on e4. I'm not sure whether it's the right decision. It felt to be the simplest because, well, we both kind of having a time trouble at this point. He had, like, I don't know, a few minutes on the clock. I had maybe slightly more. And even though it's move 40, and as you may know, in a lot of classical tournaments, you get this 30 minutes increment after the move 40. In this tournament, there wasn't one. So it's just all that we have. Of course, we have the 30 seconds increment after each move, but, well, it's not that much. You constantly are under this time pressure. And so I felt like taking on e4 and then playing rook f8, pinning this pawn is the right thing to do, because if I play it immediately, I guess he can still take on e5. And the point is the knight is hanging here, so I probably can't take with the knight. I'm calculating now bishop takes d4, knight takes d3 with a fork, but queen can go to f1, knight takes c1, and queen takes c1. Maybe let me show it to you to make it simpler. And now this pawn is still pinned, so I can't recapture the bishop, and without recapturing the bishop, I'm just having a rook against two pieces, which is not great. So yeah, I guess I couldn't take it back. I can take back on e4 with the tempo, and that might be a good idea. But there's still this bishop is hanging, and yeah, maybe it works. Maybe after he goes somewhere with the queen, I can take it back with the queen on e5, and now everything is kind of hanging. Yeah, especially this pawn on d5 seems like, yeah, I control pretty much everything. So maybe that was also the right way to go. But I took it first, and the drawback, and then played rook f8. The drawback is that I made his knight very active in the center of the board. He controls everything, he attacks the pawn. I was hoping that I could handle it. And the main thing for me, I made sure that he can't take it here, so my knight on d4, which is the main piece for me, is still very stable there. When you have a few minutes on the clock, I guess that's the most important thing, to make sure that nothing falls apart. He played king h1. Yeah, some kind of a security move, like making sure that nothing happens to the king, like no forks would be here available, but once again feels a little bit passive. So I had this time to play knight b3, that was my idea, attacking the knight, and now I can take on f4, because, well, once again here I can take, the pawn on c5 is pinned, so I just lose my knight. But if I remove my knight from d4 for a moment, I'm able to take on f4. Rook c3, and I just took on f4. And here he took on c5 because he still have enough attackers. So as a result, we basically exchanged a pair of pawns. I took it back with a knight, and here maybe you can think of a good opportunity for black. I hope the move I made is the correct one, because I had literally just a few minutes left, and it seemed to work, and it turned out to be a good one, but I'm not sure, maybe I'm missing some crazy attacking resources from his side, so hopefully by this point you have found the move. Like, just taking on c5 doesn't feel to be enough. He takes back with a queen, and if I take it, then we have this rook endgame when I'm right now a pawn up, but this pawn is very weak. And for example, a4, can play rook c4, and yeah, rook c4, rook f5, he takes, and if we exchange and I take here and here, it's just 2 against 1, just a draw, no way to play for a win, and definitely I wanted more. I wanted to play for a win, I have an extra pawn, so I came up with this move queen a5. I'm kind of winning a tempo here, because if the rook goes away, or if he protects his rook, then, well, I can take a pawn on d5, or at least I could exchange this knight, not allowing him to jump somewhere, and my queen is not on c7 anymore. It's in the center of the board and I have time for some active actions. So he played knight takes d7, we exchanged those rooks, and now we have this endgame. He played rook d2, and at the moment I had like 3 minutes and I spent almost all of them leaving just a few seconds on the clock trying to understand how do I play for a win, because it seemed like I can just play something like queen e3 or queen g3 trying to get into the endgame, but I thought he can just play king g1, protecting this queen. And now how do I proceed? If I take, he takes with a king, and as this king is coming to f3, and once again I don't think it's enough here for the victory. Even if I put the rook behind my pawn, he just plays d6 and d7. Yeah, I'm in time to catch it, but yeah, maybe it's still winning. So like king f3, I can just push my pawn, he takes, I push my pawn and I win this one. And such a position when you have your rook behind the pawn, it's very great in the rooks endgame to have the rook behind your passer. Should be winning, but still I didn't want to go here. Somehow it felt, yeah, maybe it's not enough. So I was looking for something more active for me, more sharp. So I played queen a1 check here. The good thing is with these two moves, and then played queen a5, with these two moves I gained 1 minute on the clock. And that is of course always nice. And I'm attacking the pawn on g5, I'm preparing the move f3, a discovery check, trying to open up his king, so I have some checkmating threats. And I'm also keeping an eye on this pawn. The queen in the center is usually great in the endgame because it controls as many squares as possible. And I was expecting here d6, I guess that's a critical move, just not being afraid of anything and just going all the way for it. And I wasn't sure how do I proceed, f3 probably, and trying to basically give a checkmate. But he played queen f3 and I thought that kind of simplifies my task, because now I take on g5 and I'm threatening queen h4, he can't go back because queen a1 wins the rook. And so he either needs to spend another tempo on doing something about it, or he needs just to be okay with going into the endgame after d6, and that's what he did. Queen h4, queen h3, and I just took this queen. But the difference now is that I have captured this pawn on g5 in the process. So I guess this is much simpler than the one before. And I actually missed, like here I made the right move, I believe, king f7, just moving your king towards the center, towards the pawn, which is the only danger I have here. That's always good. But here after king g6, after king g4, sorry, I guess I had a better chance than what I did. At least a simpler conversion. I don't believe that I missed a victory here, but just a simpler way to get it. Maybe you can pause the video for a second and try to find it. So I believe the simplest way is to play rook a8 here. Just putting the rook behind the pawn, and basically no matter what, I want to play king a8 and king d8 and just literally blocking this pawn with my pawn, and then I don't care what happens, I just push my pawn all the way through. At some point he needs to block it, and then I will easily take this pawn back, and then yeah, I have this endgame with two extra pawns easily winning. So, and if he plays d7, then I'm in time to play king e7, and if he plays d8, I'm just taking it, and otherwise, like I said, just king d8 and now push. I don't know, the king is coming, but I can always chase it away with the check. So a3, a2 is threatening, rook a2, rook a6, the king has to go away. I take this one, and then, well, I can do whatever I want. I can put my king here and I can just promote the pawn and win the game. But yeah, with having a few minutes on the clock, I haven't probably made the right choice, although I believe it's still winning. The move king e6 seems to be once again very natural. Put your king to the center, controlling this pawn. And he played the move d7. And now it's too late to play rook a8. I have to cover this. Ah, no, wait, I played the move rook to d8. Yeah, not king e7, rook to d8. And just blocking this pawn physically. And he played rook a2. And now I thought, well, okay, now I can play rook a8 and just follow the same idea. But actually it would be a horrible mistake, probably costing me the victory, because here he can just take on a5, and then, well, I can take it back because he's gonna promote his pawn, and otherwise he's just winning a pawn with a tempo, and of course I'm not really fighting for the victory anymore. So I had to take here, which I did, and then I played rook f7, and now we have these 3 pawns against 1, and yeah, normally it should be easily winning, no question about that, but yeah, somehow I started to be a little bit worried what happens if he starts to give a great number of checks. I have to put my king somewhere like maybe here, but then I was a little bit worried not to get into trouble with my king over there, or if I go all the way here somehow to attack this rook, then it might be taking the f4 pawn, and I was thinking like if I am in time with my king to go back, because otherwise once again I won't be able to win the game. So I was a little bit worried without the time on the clock, but somehow he just, yeah, I guess he didn't really hope that he could still survive here, so he was just going back and forth. And I played rook f6, trying to get some squares for my king. And yeah, I was also thinking then about this pawn endgame, because, well, normally if you think about the pawn endgames, if you have 2 against 1 in the pawn endgame and nothing special, like no passer for your opponent, it should be easily winning. But yeah, I was also a little bit worried, just making sure that everything is good, but yeah, this one should be winning. So I just played rook f6. He played rook b2 instead, and then I started remaneuvering my king to go to the safety. Now I put my king to h7, no checks possible, and I also played rook f7 just to make sure that there are no checks over here and I am ready to push my pawns. So basically what I want to do is to play g6, I did that, and then play h5 and pushing the king away, because I need it either to go back or to go away so I can play f3 and exchange the pawns, because h and g pawns are always winning. 2 connected passers are always winning with rooks on the board. h5, he played king f3 back, once again because of after king h4, f3 is possible and probably just wins the game on the spot. And I played g5 here and he resigned. He played rook b6, king g7, and now he resigned here. Because, well, g4 is coming, I can also play rook f6 first, king g6, and then g4, and, well, to say the least, I will be able to exchange this pawn. Let me play a variation rook f6, and then g4, and then f3, and, well, if he takes, once again we have this position, which is always easily winning, or he can play g3, but then I just go away somewhere and go here and then go to g2, and this pawn is no longer too safe. If he tries to stop it, well, I even can just go to e6, for example. If he tries to stop the check, I guess I can just still, well, you have to be careful with those endgames, because it's winning if you have the opposition. Otherwise, if I get like something like that, seems to be that it's not winning anymore. So yeah, you don't really want to spoil everything. Well, in such a position, you might consider some stuff like h4, because if he takes, there is g4, and then this pawn just promotes, and you just win the game. So yeah, like if you have such a structure, there is a 100% chance there is going to be something that guarantees you the victory. So, and if he takes, yeah, then once again the king will be able to go through, and yeah, we will be eventually able to promote those pawns. So that was the game. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you find my analysis instructive, because I was literally just going through the game with my thoughts during the game. Now let's turn the engine and see what it says about it, how many hundreds of mistakes I made throughout the game, and what could I learn in terms of my future chess development. Okay, so now let's see what the engine says. Let's go through the game again. So that is well, I knew the evaluation here because I was preparing it. You see that, like I said, the position is slightly better for white thanks to more activity, thanks to more space, but well, very playable for black, and the advantage is not that great. So here bishop a5 is completely playable. Knight went to d2, rook d8, bishop f1, knight f8, and d5. So this position I still had during the preparation. And here I have played bishop d7. That's my first own move, and that's the correct one, no problems with that. Here I played rook d to c8, the engine also seems to like it. Bishop b6, and you see here, it seems like white is having so much more space, and you feel like definitely white should be much better here. But in fact, if you take a look at the engine evaluation, it's almost equal, because the black's position is so flexible, and even though you have a lot of space as white, you can't really use it very actively. You play queen d3, and now c5. Yeah, c5 was a mistake according to the engine, at least in accuracy. So instead, I should have just exchanged the bishop. Yeah, I thought about it, but what I didn't like is that it felt to be passive for me. Like I take, and then I play b6. Yeah, I thought about this move b6 and then c5. Like, I don't know, he does something, and then I play c5, he plays b5, everything is closed, but like, it's incredibly passive for me. It's only white who can play here. He will make sure, like, I have this f5, which is a normal active plan here, but I'm not sure he's gonna allow me that. I guess he's gonna start his play here, I don't know, putting the knight on g3, putting the bishop on d3, the pawn on g4, and, well, yeah, I would be passive for the whole game. So that is why I didn't really want to exchange. But yeah, I was considering that, and so I played c5. And it says that it's a bad move because of takes. Okay, that's what happened. And here, according to the engine, my opponent should have played f4. Yeah, maybe because I'm not in time to play knight e8 and f6 to support this pawn, and if he gets to exchange my pawn, then he has a chance to just go through with knight f3, e5, and all of the pawns are going forward. So knight e8, for example, okay, he actually doesn't take it. If takes, okay, I can, instead of taking with the queen, I can take it. Yeah, if I place my knight on e5, that's just a dream. I'm blocking this square and then everything is great. Yeah, that's right. But instead, he plays knight f3 first, he's threatening to take. But then I have time to protect it. Yeah, but still engine prefers white here because sorry, but still engine prefers white here because well, white's position is more active and there are some weaknesses in my camp. I still can place the knight on d6, but the problem is I guess this move bishop g5, and then I don't have a good square for the queen because I want this d6 square desperately for my knight, but I have to go there with a queen if I want to save this pawn on e5, which is crucial for me. Yeah, so this c5 was a mistake, but like I said, I just didn't want to be passive. I could have also taken on d5, was calculating that as well, but once again I didn't like the fact that his knight is coming to c4, and well, it would be incredibly active, attacking everything here, and yeah, I wasn't a big fan of this idea either, but the engine likes it. He actually says it's completely equal and there is no problem with the knight being on c4. Well, right now of course it's a mistake because I win some material, but if he protects somehow first, then I still double my rooks. And yeah, he still can't go to c4 with his knight. Okay, yeah, actually interesting because my rooks are so active, and I guess I come up with some ways what to do with my knights afterwards, and then it works. Yeah, so that is what I need to remember for my future games, because of course my future opponents could find this idea, could play f4, and then I could get in trouble. But now I have analyzed it, and I'm not gonna play c5 in my next game. takes. Actually, this position is also better for him. What he played bishop e2 is also pretty good, but the advantage is not that huge anymore. So I played knight e8, bishop g4, I took here and played queen d7. Okay, so still slightly better for white, but nothing special, just plus 0.4, 0.5, a6, knight d1, knight d6, knight b2. Yeah, I guess that is roughly what how I evaluated the position, slightly better for my opponent. And b5, that's the key moment when I felt, well, I have to be active. If I'm not active now, then I'm gonna suffer for the rest of the game. And yeah, the engine doesn't say anything special, just knight b3 and f3, so just, you know, stabilizing everything and then step by step trying to create some difficulties for black. He played f3 immediately, played queen a7, and a3, yeah, like I thought, it's a little bit too passive somehow. I'm not sure what's the point of this move. Instead, the engine suggested a4. Yeah, a4 is interesting because it stops my idea. You remember, I wanted to get with my knight to d4, but if he plays a4, I can never do that because he has two pawns there and I can take one of them, but another one would still control the b5 square and I can never go to d4. So that was a good idea. He played a3 instead. I played knight d7, knight b3, and here bishop d8, yeah. Although the difference is not that huge, like you see here. But still, bishop d8 is the top choice. And that's what I did, queen f2. And here I took. Okay, the engine says it's actually not the best line. Yeah, it's what happens in real life with the engine. You are proud of a move, you feel like that is what actually brought you to the victory, and it might be true in terms of practical game, but objectively it might not be the best move at all. So the engine says I should have just played rook a to b8 or h6 and just hang on there. But I believe if I did that, I would never win the game. Just literally never, because if you don't make active moves in such a position, then you can't ever make a progress, you can't never play for a win. And what I did maybe was slightly worse objectively, but it gave me this chance to be active. Yeah, knight d2, it doesn't really spoil anything like I thought, because I thought, well, after c3 I really get the initiative, but well, engine says it's still better for white, and even after this move rook c1 I'm taking the pawn, but still the engine prefers white's position. Well, I didn't thought that I'm much better here or anything, I was just happy to get to this situation. I liked the position after knight d4, but yeah, apparently I wasn't better at all. Knight a5, bishop takes, rook takes. Of course, well, if you look at it, there is a protected passer, there is a weakness here, there is a nice outpost for the knight, so it feels like white should have some compensation for the pawn, but I didn't feel any danger, like I'm protecting everything, there is no danger for me, so that is why I was pretty happy. And from a practical point of view, I thought that well, I have good chances here now, especially taking into account the fact that my opponent was in time trouble. He played rook a2, he played a5, g5, and f5. Yeah, actually a pretty high quality game, I have to say. It's not really going into one of the directions, it remains to be more or less stable with slight advantage for both of the sides. Now seems like the engine starts to give some preference to black. And actually ftx is the right move here, and rook f8 is probably not. Ah, okay, now he can take, yeah, exactly. He can take on d4, and he can play e5, and then you see these beautiful pawns here. That's of course better for white. I haven't seen this concrete variation, but I somehow felt that rook f8 is wrong, and that's why I didn't play it, and my intuition helped me. So I took an f4 instead, And well, now taking on d4 is never a problem for me because, well, there is no e-pawn to go forward. King h1. Yeah, in such a position it's very difficult to make the right move with white, especially if you don't have any time, because you don't have any active moves, so you just need to hang on a little bit and try not to blunder anything, but it's really tough. He played king h1, and now I have this knight b3. Is it the right move? Well, it's not the top choice. I could have just continued with a4. Yeah, a4 seems strong. It's just, once again, in the time trouble you tend to try to find the forcing line to simplify the position a little bit, and that's what I did. But I guess I spoiled some part of the advantage, so a4 was the right move. It just felt that if I push this pawn it could become a weakness at some point. Here I protected nicely with my queen, so I could never get into trouble, and after a4 I thought he might double it, and then yeah, how do I even protect it? I don't know. I played knight b3, still better for for black, and here I took on f4. Yeah, still good. Knight takes, and queen f5 here. Okay, there are actually a lot of moves. I could have just played rook b8, trying to penetrate into white's camp. And the endgame is still great for me. Well, if you have such a rook behind your passer, you normally don't want to push it at all, so it was slightly counterintuitive for me, but the right way, at least according to the stockfish, was just to forget about the pawn and concentrating on giving a checkmate. It's, yeah, basically all about stockfish that you need to know. Queen f5, which actually gives away a huge part of the advantage. The engine says it's practically equal. It didn't feel so during the game at all, because like extra pawn, my king is safer, definitely safer than his pawn. Like the only good thing for him is that this pawn on d5, but I mean I have f3, I have this passer. How on earth could it be equal? I sincerely don't get it. I guess there are some active chances here, like the engine says queen e2, then maybe this queen goes here, but I thought I always have the move king h8, and meanwhile, well, I must be able to create some danger for my opponent. I wonder what happens if I just play f3 here. Okay, now it's a draw. Okay, he has rook f2, and I can't win this rook because the queen controls everything. And then he threatens to just take it with the rook, and then I have some back rank problems as well. Yeah. With the engine in such a position, when you have incredible amount of opportunities, it's never possible to fight. But as human, it's really difficult to play it as white, because your king is opened, you have a lot of pawns to face, as this queen is going around, as the rook might come, and I guess it's very scary to play something like that as white. And you see here, he played rook d2, and actually it blunders immediately. Wow. I haven't played f3 in this position. And that's the moment where I really thought for a long time, like I spent almost all of the time I have, and I didn't play f3. I was thinking about it, definitely, but I somehow didn't think that it's so dangerous. I thought he can play just g3 and trying to stop everything, but I completely missed the idea of queen takes d2 and f2. I didn't see it at all. I didn't calculate it. It was a blind spot for me. If he takes, then it should be some kind of a checkmate. Yeah, just rook takes f3, and the king is completely naked, and there should definitely be something. Yeah, that might have been much more simpler than it happened in the game. So I played queen a2, which actually blunders away almost the whole advantage entirely. Like in one move, it's so crazy. Like you're playing your whole game, some maneuvering, some development, some nuances, positional, tactical, and you're achieving some good position, some winning position, and then it's enough to make like one check, which is seemingly very active, seemingly not spoiling anything, and you blunder away the whole advantage. the whole like hours of hard work of getting to this position. It's just really incredible. Like, I still feel that it's much simpler, much more pleasant to play as black, and it's very difficult to find all of the moves as white, especially when you don't have any time on the clock. But yeah, the move d6 is correct. I also felt that it should be correct for white. Like, okay, f3 doesn't matter, you just do what you want. And here actually g3 works, because, well, my queen is not attacking the rook anymore, that's the difference, and the pawn is already on d6, so it's very dangerous. Yeah, and I wasn't sure. I guess I didn't want to play f3, I wanted to take it here on g5, and I thought, well, I'm controlling this pawn twice, so in the worst case scenario you can always block it. But then, yeah, even though I'm in 2 pawns up, but still it's enough for white to make a draw thanks to the activity. Queen e2 threatening queen a8. Well, I can just have some space for my king, but maybe not. Maybe he starts to check me. Rook d3. Yeah, that's very frustrating. Like, you have 2 extra pawns. I understand this pawn is very strong, but still 2 pawns and you can't do anything, because my rook is now passive and I only have the queen, and I can't do much with just the queen. Okay, and he played queen f3 here, and then still the position is not that clear. I thought actually here it should be... Ah, okay, because this endgame is not that clear. That's very interesting. Yeah, so learn the rook's endgame. It's the most difficult thing there is in chess, totally, and you can learn it the whole life and still not understand anything at all. So it felt like, yeah, okay, now it gives +2, so if you give the stockfish some time to think, now it's almost 30 in terms of depths, and it's normally like, if you get to 30, you can more or less trust the engine evaluation and be sure that if he says -2.5, well, that should be enough to win the game. So here, actually king e6 is the right move. Ah, okay, because he has this rook e2 idea. Yeah, that is something I didn't see, and if I play a4, I actually blunder everything in terms of my advantage, because he has d7 and he threatens rook e8, and I'm not in time to play a2, a1. And if I play rook d8 back, then he can just take this pawn somehow. Yeah, rook a2, and then he takes on f4 in the end of the day, and it's just 2 against 1. So actually I took the right decision here, surprisingly, because during the game I was like, come on, I missed such an easy way to win the game, and now I have to still fight a little bit. But actually I did the right thing. My intuition helped me, my understanding of general chess principles, that in the endgame it's always great to bring your king to the center, because the king is a very powerful piece in the endgame, and that's exactly what was the right thing to do here. And now we are going into this endgame, which, yeah, suddenly it gives just a slight edge for me. So, well, yeah, already once again +2. So I'm curious whether he had any chances. No, if you let Stockfish think about it, he finds that this position is completely winning. Okay, then my understanding is correct, and then I just slowly converted it, and the end position is easily winning. Yeah, so that's it. That was a pretty long video, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful for you. And yeah, write in the comments how you analyze the games. What do you think about my approach? And hit the like button if you enjoyed this long video. I hope it was instructive for you, and consider subscribing to my channel, because there are a great number of educational videos that are there available. That there are great videos that I'm planning to make, and well, I hope to see you again.